Hello everyone and thank you for tuning into Trade Chat. My name is Panzer and today we are going to be talking to Refute and Preheat of the US-based World of Warcraft guild Limit. They're one of the best guilds in the world and they're going to be talking about this really strange situation that happened to them where one of their guildies actually DDoSed another guildie to try to get a raid spot. When this happened, it blew up. It was on Kotaku, it was all over Twitter, and it's a really weird and interesting situation. They also took a little bit of time to talk about what it's like to competitive raid, how to get into raiding, and just some general advice for WoW players. So I hope that you enjoy this video, and if you do, remember to rate it thumbs up. Alrighty, so I am here with some of the guys from Limit, one of the best, if not the best, guild in North America for PvE raiding type stuff. If you guys don't mind introducing yourselves, I would totally appreciate that.
I'll go first. My name is Preheat, and I'm a mage and an officer in Limit.
My name is Refute. I am a Resto Druid for Limit.
Perfect. I play a Resto Shaman at a very casual level. So the first question I want to ask you guys is, for those of us who haven't experienced raiding on that very competitive level, like shooting for, world first, NA first, even top 10, top 100 is a whole different game. Can you give us an idea of what it is like during the progression phase?
Yeah, absolutely. So the progression phase is kind of like an endurance match, right? Like I would say, like, in a way, it's kind of like boxing in the sense, because I mean, like any given tier, right, can last anywhere from 1 week. We have a few day tiers like in EN, and then we have tiers like last tier where it's just weeks and weeks, and people are just still going and seeing like how much they can raid, how if they can get people on. So it's very intense, I would say.
Do you have anything to add to that, Refute?
It's definitely an endurance match, and I think a lot of it boils down to how much your raiders can handle raiding in a short amount of time. Like the differences just between even the top 10 guilds is pretty dramatic when it comes to like raiding hours. I know for us, we day raid just a few nights during the first week that content comes out. And that certainly matters when you're able to pull a boss, 12 hours a day compared to just, 6 hours a day or whatever your rating schedule is.
That is absolutely brutal. I feel like I raid at like a heroic level. And I've done mythic raiding before, never at a level like you guys ever. But, and I feel like there are times when I feel really burnt out. It's like, oh, it's been 3 hours. I'm over this. I can't even fathom like 12-hour raiding days. How much like time and effort goes into the preparation for something like a world first race?
So a lot of the preparation kind of has to deal with what the expansion is and what like requirements there are for that expansion. Like Legion is kind of an outlier just because I would say it's kind of more like back in the day, like in vanilla and BC, where there's just a lot to do outside of raid. So you also have like expansions like last expansion where there isn't that much other than just maybe the officers handling certain clerical things. Mm-hmm. But this expansion in particular has been very intense with getting everyone their artifact power, their legendaries they need. And of course, getting their gear Titan Forged before the raid.
Oh, for sure. I raided Mythic last expansion. It's funny that you mention it. And the reason I opted not to is because I travel so much and there's so much you have to do just to raid at a Mythic level, even if you're not, pushing to be super competitive about it. This expansion that I'm leading our heroic raid instead, because there's so much time and effort that goes into raid outside of raid. And in these races where people are being really competitive, I've heard of people doing all sorts of crazy stuff to get an advantage and trying to get world first with account sharing and even botting. But recently, you guys had one of the most bizarre things I've ever heard happen. For anybody who hasn't heard about this, you guys had a guildmate who actually DDoSed another guildmate, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Well, he was involved with the DDoSing. We don't know if he actually did it himself, but he certainly aided in that happening.
So walk us through this. Tell us about what happened.
So after raid one night, we were on Argus progression, and a few of the healers, we all have our own healer Discord so that we can manage our cooldowns and try and be more effective with raid healing. And so a lot of them went to bed. We've been raiding for many hours. I'm not sure exactly the day. Probably was 8-hour raid or something like that. So a lot of people went straight to bed, but some of us were hanging out afterwards. It was me, Haunted, and Adois. And Adois was just being really weird, trying to pressure Haunted into clicking this shortened link, which led to his CryptoKitties page, which has something to do with cryptocurrency, but I didn't read too much into it. But ultimately, it just gave me a weird feeling how he was pressuring Haunted to click this. So I went and checked it out, and Haunted just wanted to go to bed. And then inevitably, a DDOS wanted me to click on it. And so that's what really, a lot of my real life friends say skeptical Mark is skeptical because I'm really not a trusting person.
Yeah.
So I went and looked into it, and then ultimately found out that, he was using this link shortener to link to another link shortener to then link to his final page, and was trying to grab the IP address of whoever clicked on the link.
With the goal of getting their spot, not kicking them off
Yeah.
so that he could take their spot. Have you ever seen anybody
Right.
do anything that extreme before?
No, I'm relatively new to like the world first, or competitive rating, so I haven't heard too much about it, but I know that other guilds certainly have been involved with, trying to DDoS other people, or I've heard of it at least. But I've never heard of somebody being in a guild trying to get another person's raid spot simply by knocking them offline.
Yeah,
with a DDoS attack.
It's like the amount of time and effort he put into that. He could have probably put into being a better healer.
Yeah.
And getting a raid spot on his own. But what did that do to like your team's morale with that? I mean, you guys are still trying to get Argus down, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, we're still working on Argus. It is
in fact right now
we're trying to climb.
In fact, right now we're actually doing some heroic splits, like as we speak.
Yeah.
So yes, the race is still very much on for us. As far as morale goes, like morale in an endurance kind of game, right? Like I was saying before, progression is kind of an endurance match, right? Like morale cannot be overstated because that's essentially what drives your guild and keeps people on and makes sure that people don't, just kind of ghost out of a raid. So it's huge to keep morale up. And I will say that although you might expect this to affect morale negatively, usually whenever something like happens that kind of sets us back or we see we can rally behind, it actually like greatly increases our guild morale.
Has it become like a meme in your guild? I feel like that's how my guild would have handled that.
Yeah, that's how it generally goes down is, somebody's lagging. Oh God, a DDoS is DDoSing us.
Oh man. So do you know how long he had been doing that?
Like we've had problems in the previous raid. We had a healer named Nori who was having internet problems, and he was actually our like flex healer. So he was, a boomkin that also healed, kind of the role that Haunted's filling now. And he had like strange internet problems. So we can't say for sure, but it certainly seems strange that, it's always the healers that are having the internet problems. Even when a DDoS was in the guild. So
do you feel like this has set you guys back at all, or has there been any sort of like aftermath that you've had to clean up after this happened?
Well, it was nice that we found out about it after raid hours, and so it didn't like actually impact our like raid the day of.
Yeah.
And also during the downtime we were able to figure it out. It kind of sets us back now because I think we really wish that we had a Resto Shaman for Argus, and so it's kind of ironic that had a DDoS not done this and stuck around, I think he would be pulling the boss, which is exactly what he wanted based on trying to knock a healer offline.
Oh, isn't that just some delicious irony?
Yes, it is. Yeah, I mean, like, so just to be like clear, we found this out like immediately, right? So like he was scraping the IP addresses, and I think that he did successfully knock one of the healers off for maybe a couple hours, but we pretty much caught this the day of. Now that's assuming that he hasn't done it before, and we aren't too sure on that, right? Like with the whole Nori thing, we aren't 100% certain if that was really it.
Mm-hmm.
He hasn't fessed up about any of it. He still denies all the allegations. But I guess what you could say is that we caught this very early on.
Well, that's definitely a good thing. Has this incident kind of like changed your outlook on recruiting new players, or has it, do you have any like plans set up, or are you just not worried about that ever happening again because it's so ridiculous?
So in the recruitment process, we're very clear about what we expect from our potential raiders. One of the biggest things that we are absolutely zero tolerance, no nonsense about is DDoSing. DDoSing affects the community in such a negative way. In fact, there's no like excuse for DDoSing, and it's a zero tolerance kind of thing. Like if we ever found out that someone had ever DDoSed in the past, we would not consider them. And if someone were to ever DDoS anyone for any reason, even if it wasn't World of Warcraft, right? Even if it was, let's just say it's Rust or, some other game.
Or even like when someone's streaming.
Right. Or even, yeah, exactly. Someone random. I mean, even if it was a DDoS of someone who doesn't even play a game, it doesn't matter. Like we wouldn't tolerate that, and they would be out of the guild as soon as we found out. So I don't think our policy really can change much because we are already like very zero tolerance on this, which is kind of weird that it ended up happening this way, right? We're all still just scratching our heads thinking like, how is this possible that this happened?
Oh, it's just such an extreme thing to do. Like it would be, not that it would be okay, but it would be at least somewhere that I would understand the logic of maybe trying to do this to a competing, like another guild, like, oh, we're gonna get him but like to actually like sabotage your own teammate, not to further everybody but just to further yourself, is just, I don't get it at all. I don't get it at all.
Yes, it has a lot of implications, right? Because that means that person isn't wanting the guild to succeed. They only want their own personal gains.
Yeah, it's just a bizarre personality type to have in a group of people that are so focused on one common goal. So moving on from this whole nonsense situation a little bit, you guys are still working your way through Mythic Antorus. You're all but Argus down right now. And how would you feel like Antorus compares to other raids in terms of difficulty and mechanics, RNG, stuff like that?
So this raid is very interesting because the first half of it, in fact, 90% of it is just very, very easy. And then you have that last two boss, like the boss before last, is Agrimar, yes, thank you. Is quite difficult, but you know, it's not like insane. And then you have Argus, which is just like one of those bosses that kind of makes you really reevaluate your strategy, I guess, going into a tier. One of those bosses,
and even with your strategy, there's still a lot of RNG to it.
Yes, it's a very, very difficult boss. So it seems like they really hit the mark when it comes to the last two bosses of this raid, but I think everything else maybe have fallen short. Maybe not like the first couple bosses, because those are supposed to be kind of a gimme. But I would say, especially with Coven, little let down.
What are your thoughts as far as that steep difficulty jump, as like you were just talking about how it's so easy and then it just gets really, really hard? Have you guys ever experienced any other raids like that, or do you think that's totally new? How do you feel about it? Would you like to see that going forward, where it's just sort of gimme and then it gets really hard towards the end, or would you rather see like a sloping difficulty?
I think for the game itself, like as far as good design and what like I consider good design, I think that like a sloping difficulty is always best. Because you don't want to spend, 90 to 100. I don't know if these are actually anywhere ballpark where we're at, but I'm just going to throw them out there. 90 to 100 hours on one boss while you spend, 1 hour per boss before, right? Like,
yeah,
it's interesting to see a little variety, and it's fun if more bosses are harder. They don't all have to be insanely hard, but if it was like, if you didn't clear like 9 bosses in the first day, that would be great. I would be down for that.
Yeah, for sure. That was surprising to see how quickly even like my guild got down bosses towards the beginning. It was just they were falling over. It was very, very easy. But you've noted a few times that Argus is super, super hard. Do you think he's the hardest boss you've encountered in WoW?
I'm not sure if it's the hardest boss we've encountered. Now, I would definitely say that Kil'jaeden just like numerically is harder, but we had some setbacks last year that kind of set our progression back, and most of those things had been changed by the time we got there. There definitely was still like a lot of the hot fixes came afterwards, but I would say that so far it's at least at par with some of the harder bosses we fought.
As far
I think even mechanically, there's a lot to do with Argus that is unseen.
There's a lot of weird stuff with that
the
fight.
buffs and debuffs that come out, it's like a very meticulous thing, and I don't know if I can remember a boss that had something like that. Like even with what was the boss before KJ? Fallen Avatar.
Sorry, yeah.
It's like with the line soaks, and that was kind of meticulous. Everybody had to be, doing the right thing at the right time. But even still, that was significantly easier than what is going on with Argus.
Yeah, Argus, and we're not, again, most players are not doing it on Mythic. And then to even get into such a competitive level of Mythic, most people, you guys and many other guilds will have cleared it and have videos out, and people will be able to go in and sort of be guided through in a way and have an idea of what they're getting into. But correct me if I'm wrong, you guys just walked into that hidden phase blindly.
Yes. Oh, yeah. And everyone, I wouldn't say we walked in, we went in screaming just because everyone was so excited to see it. And we saw it so early on, right? Like the last phase for most guilds, and this is kind of public knowledge, so I'll kind of talk about it. like the Chinese are streaming it right now. You can see that they very, very quickly got to that last phase, and that's where the fight truly begins. So we were very excited to get to that last phase, but that last phase is actually the entire fight.
Wow.
So very, very long wipes is what that means.
Yeah, long wipes, and that heroic really didn't prepare you in any way. Because a lot of times, even, especially lately, it seems like the trash will be like, oh, the trash is kind of like miniature versions of what the boss does. And then, the boss on normal is similar to heroic but easier, and the boss on heroic is usually similar to mythic but easier. But if that phase is where it all starts, then there was really no way to prepare whatsoever.
Yeah, I mean, like we had a good general idea of like what we needed to do just based on data mining, and we were able to see the abilities. But whenever you see it in person, that's where the work truly begins, right? Like most people in the guild aren't like learners who can just learn things by reading Wowhead notes.
Yeah.
So it's definitely a process, and all it takes is just getting there over and over and over again, seeing more and more in the fight.
For sure. For players who maybe want to get into raiding or maybe want to raid more seriously than they do currently, do you have any recommendations for them?
If you're wanting to raid seriously, what I recommend is finding a guild that's maybe a good bit better than yours, but not like too big of a difference. You don't want to just jump straight into some top 50 guild if you've never really experienced it, unless you're just really confident in yourself. I think that the best way to start things is by working your way up the ladder. I think that that's how a lot of people in our guild did it, and that's how I myself did it. And also, if you're looking to improve, the best thing I can recommend is become a raid leader. Having the understanding and I guess the awareness that's required to be a raid leader can be really huge, right? And it will definitely improve you as a player if you're having to make calls and basically look out for everyone else.
For sure. And as a raid leader, like I've only raid led at again, very casual level. I don't want to in any way come across like I am on the same playing field as you guys right now because I'm not even remotely close. But last expansion, I did some of the healing stuff for our raid. Like I wasn't quite the raid leader, but I was managing when people did their healing cooldowns and what healers needed to be where and who was in melee and it's so much more than just kind of showing up and raiding. It's even at a lower level. So I think that's really, really, really good advice because I felt like I was a much better player when I had those types of responsibilities than now. I just kind of show up and eat snacks. I'm drunk sometimes. I'm a mess. I'm a mess.
Yeah. I'll also say like you don't have to be in like a top guild to like understand how much goes into raiding, right? Like there are a lot of guilds nowadays who do splits who maybe just casual guilds, right? There's just so much benefit to splits and other things like that a lot of guilds are doing it now. Mm-hmm. And I think that the responsibility, even in a small guild, can definitely be on par with a top guild when it comes to like running the show.
Yeah, that was a big experience for me, and I think that's excellent advice. For all of us that like to watch the Mythic race, I think it's really exciting for me and a lot of other people. And I think we live in a really strange time right now because social media is so prominent in everyone's lives. Even a couple of years ago, it wasn't the way it is now. And I'm wondering like how you feel like social media and the idea of popularity has kind of affected the experience for raiders. I mean, it seems like everybody is streaming now. Everybody has a YouTube channel. Everybody's got a Twitter.
Yeah, social media definitely is affecting a lot of things nowadays, right? Like even political elections. So I definitely think that it's interesting to see like how it affects the game. I really like being able to like have that line of communication with other guilds and with people who just maybe play the game casually and maybe are interested a little bit in the progression race. So yeah, I mean, a lot of people in the guild might disagree with me, but I think it's a very good thing, and I definitely enjoy social media when it comes to World of Warcraft, and I hope that you guys follow us on Twitter and do all that cool stuff.
Yeah, that was actually my last question was if you had a preferred social media or if you had a Discord or Twitter or anything that anyone can follow you and promote yourself.
Yeah,
shamelessly.
Absolutely, yeah. Shamelessly. You got to have no shame in social media. That's the strategy.
Plug.
Yes, the plug. So Limit Guild is our Twitter handle. Go ahead and follow us if you want to see our tweets. We have a really awesome community manager who runs the Twitter for the most part. Her name is Azoria. Shout out to her. She is amazing, and we don't deserve her.
It's true. Very nice. You guys are very nice to her.
Trust me, she is way too nice to us. That's how it is.
I love when people are like that. When you're just like, what did I do to deserve you? You must be protected.
I know. Like sometimes an angel just comes into your life and you don't even know what you did to deserve them.
Oh, goodness. Well, thank you guys so much. I know I was like, hey, can I have an hour? And it's been 20 minutes, but I really appreciate you guys making a little bit of time to talk to me. I know you're literally raiding right this second, like while we're talking. So I'm sorry for distracting you at all, but we really appreciate you talking a little bit about possibly the weirdest guild sabotage story that's ever happened in the 13 years this game has been around, and the advice for new players, and just thanks for hanging out.
Yeah, it's super weird.
Us.
Yeah, thanks for having us. It's super weird, and I hope we don't ever run into this again.
Yeah,
I hope nobody runs into this again.
So bizarre. I like read about that, and I could not, when I saw it on my Twitter come up, because I follow your guild on Twitter, when I saw it come up, I was so confused. Like, wait, he did what now? That's so weird. But I'm glad that you guys caught it early. I'm glad it didn't impact you too much, and I wish you guys the best of luck. We're still fighting for US first, correct? NA first?
Yes,
That
we
is
are.
Correct.
How many guilds have gotten Argus down? 2?
2 at this moment.
Yeah, as of right now, 2.
2.
Yes.
So, well, you guys, I wish for you to be number 3.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks
you
for
guys
having
so
us.
much for stopping by. And if anybody is watching out there and you would like to follow them, I'll have all sorts of links in the info below. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments section. And that is about it for today. So thank you so much, guys. I really appreciate it.
Thanks again.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
And that's it for our interview, guys. Thank you so much to Refute and Preheat for coming and hanging out with us. Be sure to check out the links in the info below. Go follow them on social media. Let them know that you enjoyed the interview. All of that good stuff. I'm going to go. I hope you're having a wonderful day. I love you all. You're in my hearts. I'll see you soon. Goodbye. Goodbye. Goodbye.
Is there any way for me to for the mail?
Are we all done with the ads or what?
Someone to spell here. Risen. Fuck you!
Let's fucking go! We're on a